Hey everybody, it's Kendra. Welcome to my channel if you're new, and welcome back if you've been here before. My video today is going to be how I approach the planning aspect of doing a Whole30. So maybe you've never heard of the Whole30, or maybe you've seen this book and you've been like, what's that? So Whole30 is essentially a 30-day lifestyle program in which you are removing a whole bunch of types of food groups to sort of see how you feel, and then after the 30 days you slowly reintroduce stuff back, and then you can sort of see how that affects you, like mentally, physically, emotionally, etc. So some of the things you remove include grains, dairy, alcohol, legumes, soy, anything processed, anything like, sugar or any type of artificial sweetener, carrageenan, MSG, sulfites. I think that's most of them. I'm sure there are like a few other tiny things, but that's the bulk of them. So anyway, I am currently doing a Whole30. I started on January 1st. I am on day 17 of Whole30, and I'm feeling pretty good. I do miss my chocolate. I will say that is like the one thing I really, really miss. I would just kill for like a nice piece of super dark chocolate right now. Oh baby, that sounds good. But anyway, this is my third official Whole30. The first time I did Whole30 was back in November of 2015, and then I did it again in like May, June 2017, and now here we are, January 2019, doing my third Whole30. And I wanted to do a planning video because the first Whole30 I ever did compared to the Whole30 I'm doing now, I feel like night and day difference when it comes to feeling overwhelmed. The first time I did Whole30, I felt like all I did was cook. I felt like it was nonstop cooking and going to the grocery store and planning and prepping food and then eating and then doing it all over again. So what I feel has happened since that first Whole30 to now, first of all, I've gotten way more used to planning and being super organized. Plus I'm way more used to cooking like everything from scratch. But another thing that's really happened, I have embraced the power of leftovers. Leftovers are totally your best friend if you are doing Whole30. Why do I say this? I say this because Whole30 means 30 days of whole cooking, real cooking, and you are eating 3 meals a day for 30 days. So it's essentially 90 meals. If I'm gonna make, like, let's say a stew that's gonna last me 1, maybe 2 meals, I'm gonna double up that sucker and I'm gonna make enough stew to last me 4 meals, because it's still the same amount of work to cook, but then it's gonna get me through a whole bunch more meals. So that's why I love leftovers. I like to cook, you all know I like to cook, but my goal when it comes to Whole30 planning is obviously to follow the Whole30 and be healthy, but also to not spend my entire 30 days in the kitchen all day. We live in a busy world. I'm a busy lady, and frankly, even if I'm not busy, even if I have a chill day, I don't want to spend my whole day in the kitchen. So maybe you've never done a Whole30, but you're thinking about doing one, or maybe you are in the middle of your first Whole30 and you're like, oh my gosh, this sucks, I'm so overwhelmed. I want to give you some ideas about what I do for planning, just to sort of simplify my life and make my Whole30 not suck. So planning is vital to doing a Whole30. You want to be organized. You want to know what's coming. You don't want any surprises. Like when you have surprises, that's where you fall off the Whole30 wagon. So it's good to be organized. So what I did a few days before I actually started my Whole30, I went on Word and I made a sweet little table. Nothing special, just 2 cells high, 7 cells across. This is my weekly meal planning calendar. I just wrote the days of the week here and I printed off a ton of them, okay? This is not some pristine, beautifully designed, template. I looked for those and I couldn't find anything. I'm like, whatever, I'll just make my own. I don't need anything fancy. So printed that off a few days before I started Whole30. And then I sort of approached my planning as follows. I approached it initially from like a macro level, like a really grand scale level. And I thought, okay, I've got about 4.5 weeks during the Whole30. So what are like my main meals each week going to be? So then on little Post-its on each week. So I, prepared each calendar. I put a Post-it down and I maybe wrote down like 2, possibly 3 meats. So like the first week I wrote down chicken and venison. Week 2, I wrote down, I think I did pork and beef. Week 3, that's this week. What am I eating this week? Chicken, like turkey. I think I had down turkey and then beef. And I'm not even sure what I have for next week. I wrote it down, but I don't remember. So anyway, I just kind of approached it from that aspect. I don't want to be eating beef for every meal. I don't want to be eating chicken for every meal. So generally each week I choose 2 different meats. And that's all I mean from like a macro level. When I'm talking about these 2 meats, these are the main things I'm going to be cooking that week that are going to give me a lot of leftovers. So then when I get more into like detailed, like micro planning, I'm just looking at each week and I'm writing down exactly what I guess I'll be eating. And also like if I'm making something that has, if I make a big batch of something, I'm kind of guessing how many meals that's gonna get me. So I just write everything in pencil. I'm constantly changing this. Maybe I have a meal that, maybe it's gonna actually end up being like 5 meals instead of 3. So I'm just randomly adjusting stuff as I go. For week 1, I said I was gonna do chicken and venison. So the chicken dish I made a giant batch of chicken veggie curry with cauliflower rice. So that ended up lasting 5 meals. So it was like, maybe an hour, hour and a half of work, but it got me through 5 meals. And that's 5 meals for myself and 5 meals for my husband. So that was a giant batch. Then I also made venison stew, and that got us like 4 meals. So you see what I'm saying? Instead of like, that's 9 meals right there. 5 chicken curry, 4 venison stew, and I only had to cook like essentially 2 meals. I just had all these extra leftovers. So this is really, really vital. This is gonna totally save your sanity during a Whole30, not having to constantly cook stuff like for every meal. Okay, so this is kind of how I initially do my planning. I generally do my, the following week's planning on Saturday. Plan it on Saturday, make my grocery list, and then I generally do groceries on Monday or Tuesday. And what I try to do with groceries, I generally go to Trader Joe's every week and also the local co-op. If I have to go to Whole Foods like every other week, okay, fine. And then I go to Costco maybe like once every 3 weeks. I'm trying to cut down on my Costco shopping because it's so easy to blow so much money in there. So yeah, plan on Saturday, finish my planning on Sunday, and then usually Monday I go grocery shopping. Now with grocery shopping, obviously I would encourage you to use coupons and apps and sort of, try to see what is on sale when you're doing your planning, because, you are eating real food for 30 days, and real food, unfortunately, tends to cost a lot more than processed food. So I generally look at like what meat is gonna be on sale or what particular vegetables will be on sale. And then I do try to incorporate those things and just kind of plan around those things just to save a little bit of money. So then once I've actually eaten the meals, I take a fresh calendar and I actually fill it in with pen based on what we actually did eat. This is the first time I've done this way, and I really like it, and I really like to be able to look back and be like, wow, like look at all that stuff I cooked, and I just feel very, very accomplished. Plus, the next time I do Whole30, this is, gonna be a really good base for planning as well. Another thing I'm doing with these calendars, on the bottom, I write down everything I do for exercise. So I generally try to walk on a daily basis, take like a brisk, like 40-minute walk. And then I also started doing yoga. So I'm doing this 30-day yoga challenge. It's called Yoga with Adrienne Dedicate. It's really good. You've probably heard of her. She's amazing. So then I also write like yoga day 1, yoga day 2. So track my exercise, and then I'm also tracking which grocery stores I go to and how much money I spend. I do think it is interesting to sort of see like how much you're spending doing Whole30 compared to when you weren't doing it. One thing regarding Whole30 and money, sure, real food costs more than processed food, but I feel like I'm so organized and on top of it when I do Whole30 that I don't end up buying a bunch of junk that we don't end up using and that it goes bad and then I toss it. I feel like if I'm buying something, I'm buying it for a purpose. I'm buying a specific quantity that I'm going to use all of. And then I just have a lot less waste, which is better for the environment, plus it's better for my wallet. All right, so that's generally how I plan it. I do like using these weekly calendars. It just, you know, it breaks it down. Like looking at a month calendar would be very, very overwhelming to me. So if I can just look at it like weekly, you know, even if you only plan like the first 3 or 4 days and then slowly like day by day, like, you know, keep planning a couple days out, that's fine too. But I just really encourage you to write stuff down and really, really have a plan for your Whole30. Now, a few other things that I really like to do in Whole30, I always like to make sure I have my freezer and my pantry stocked with a few things, and my fridge. In my freezer, I always like to make sure I have some frozen ground beef. This is easy to thaw out, you know, make some burger patties out of that. You could fry it up with some garlic and onions and coconut oil, whatever. Add some cumin, some like taco sort of spices. Put that on salad, throw on some salsa, some avocado. You've got Whole30 compliant like tacos. That's super great to have on hand. I also always have individually wrapped little portions of salmon, frozen salmon, super easy to thaw out and bake. Also, this Whole30, I've gotten into the whole like frozen riced cauliflower, and that is super easy to prepare, and I had never had it before, and I thought it would be gross because I'm not a big cauliflower person. But it's legit. Like I understand why people use it as a substitute for rice. I also have a whole bunch of packets of frozen beans, like frozen yellow beans or green beans in my freezer. Those are super easy to thaw out. I generally like to do frozen salmon and frozen beans. That's a super quick, easy meal to whip up. And also I do have a whole bunch of packets of frozen spaghetti squash, like roasted spaghetti squash that is now frozen. Super easy to whip up a Whole30 compliant spaghetti. A few vegetables and things I always have during Whole30. Spinach. Spinach is my green of choice for Whole30. I always have plenty of onions, plenty of fresh garlic, especially now we are in January, everybody's getting sick. Garlic is very, very good for like killing all these bugs and keeping you healthy. I generally have carrots in the house. Carrots are a nice, quick, healthy snack, as well as apples. Sometimes I'm just not hungry, but I just want like something small. I'll have an apple with some nut butter. Always make sure I have some nut butter in the house. Also, always have plenty of avocados. I like to always have like avocados at different stages of ripeness so that I'm like always in stock on at least like 1 or 2 nice ripe avocados. We go through so many avocados. And then as far as snacks, I do have a collection of RX bars and also Chomps like meat sticks. I picked up the beef and the turkey Chomp sticks. The beef ones are legit. I have not actually tried the turkey ones, but the beef ones are super, super good. So those are nice little snacks to just keep in my purse for when I'm out and about and get nice and hungry. And then as far as actually cooking, I generally do most of my cooking with either coconut oil or avocado oil. Both of them work well for high heat, which is great. They won't go bad. And then if I'm making salads for salad dressing, I generally use avocado oil. And then I also use avocado oil for making homemade mayonnaise as well. And then finally, I always have plenty of spices and salt and pepper and all these different seasonings, because that is what is really gonna make, you know, make your meals really flavorful and really, really fun. Also, during a Whole30, especially doing a Whole30 in the winter, I find that I'm really pulling out my crock pot a lot, just because it's easy. You know, it's easy to throw in a chunk of meat, you know, maybe like sear your meat on the stove, whatever, throw in some spices, and then just dump it in a crock pot and let the crock pot do the work all day. Another small thing I generally think of like when I'm doing my meal planning and trying to gauge how much stuff to make and how long I want each thing to actually last. I find that if I'm doing like a soup or a stew or even like carnitas, something that's gonna have a little bit more juiciness to it, I find that I can, you know, maybe make that last for 4 or 5 meals and it's still good. But I find like if I just cook a steak and then I'm like cutting up the steak for salad for a couple days, I find that if I just cook a piece of meat, I want to use that within like, you know, a couple days, just because it does start to taste a little bit funny if it goes for too long. So another thing I do like to do is get my husband involved. Now he is not doing an actual Whole30 with me this month, but because I do basically all the cooking, he is doing a Whole30. I mean, sometimes if I'm making something that has cauliflower rice, I'll just make him like normal rice because that's what he wants. But like, for example, the other day, I was doing my planning actually for this week and I knew I wanted to cook a chuck roast. So I found 4 or 5 different chuck roast recipes and I said, here, I don't care which one we have, you're gonna decide. So I had him look at all the different chuck roast recipes and then he chose one. And that's what I made. Actually, that's what I made this morning. We're doing the Moroccan style chuck roast from the first Whole30 cookbook. So just, you know, something like that. It can feel like a lot, like you're just making all these decisions and sometimes you just want somebody to just be like, oh yeah, do this one. Perfect. So as I said, I strategically look at each week and I choose like 2 main meats, 2 sort of meals, and then all the other meals I just fill in with random stuff. So maybe it's, you know, doing frozen salmon and green beans. Maybe it's opening a can of tuna, mixing that with some avocado, some Whole30 compliant mayo, some different type of veg, serving that over spinach. Maybe I just make, you know, scrambled eggs, fry up some spinach, have some avocado. So it's like these types of little meals that I'm just using to fill in the rest of the meals where we don't have leftovers. These are all things that are super, super quick to whip up and like they don't really take up a lot of mental space. It's just like, okay, what do I have in the kitchen? Okay, that's what I'm gonna make. Easy, 10 minutes, done. So anyway, I hope you found this helpful. I know it was kind of like all over the place, but frankly, Whole30 can definitely sort of feel like you're a little bit all over the place. If you are doing a Whole30, I would love to hear sort of how you're approaching the planning aspect of it. And also like what Whole30 foods are you just in love with? For me, it's totally the pork carnitas. I love them so, so, so much. I make them all the time. Even when I'm not doing a Whole30, they're just legit delicious. But yeah, anyway, if you are doing a Whole30, I hope it's going great and you are more than halfway done. Woohoo. So anyway, thank you so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.